I'm the chairholder of the Chair of Ukrainian Studies, affiliated with the School of Political Studies, the Faculty of Social Sciences. A very significant migration in the history of Canada, but Western Canada, was Ukrainian. From the late 19th century, so the 1890s, there was a first wave of economic migration of farmers, basically, who were given lands to settle in Western Canada. Alberta, Manitoba, and Winnipeg became like a center of Ukrainian immigration. And then you had a second wave in the 20s, and then you had the third wave after World War II. That one was a political migration. And now we have a fourth wave since the end of communism, so in the last 20 years. So there's been continuously this inflow of Ukrainians, and the community has managed to reproduce itself in terms of keeping the language, sometimes down to 3 generations, and making itself, I would say, in the post-Soviet era, and an era when Ukraine is now a state, so we've got embassies and so forth, an electoral force in Canada. So the Ukrainian community actually counts electorally. Maidan is the central square in Kiev. That's the word for square in Ukrainian, Maidan. It's the second time in recent history in post-Soviet Ukraine that we have mass mobilization on Maidan. In 2004, in what came to be known as the Orange Revolution, on Maidan, people mobilized to prevent the government from stealing the election. Essentially, it was massive fraud. And they got their way. It was a repeat election, and the opposition candidate got elected. In the last few months, it started in November, it was over whether Ukraine should sign a free trade agreement with Europe. That would have signaled kind of clear orientations towards Europe, not just economic, but in terms of values and so forth. And at the last minute, the government decided not to sign, and people started to demonstrate. And then within 10 days, the police used excessive force against demonstrators, and it galvanized the population because it was seen as really symbolizing a government, or to use another word, a regime, a way of conducting politics that has basically contempt for the individual, for the average population. And there was a repeated attempt by the police to clear the square in December, and again it led, the backlash was you had even more people demonstrating. And then in January, you had an attempt to prevent people from demonstrating altogether. They passed laws that basically criminalize any demonstration in Ukraine or any opposition political discourse. And as a result, you had violence, because once you start blocking all political channels, then you have violence. So Maidan right now is no longer directly about Europe. It's no longer about whether the government should sign or not. It's a civic rebellion, essentially, against a regime that's perceived to be illegitimate. So the main demand is that the president has to go. The constitution has to be changed. The interior ministry has to be reformed so that the police stop attacking the people. Authoritarian regimes are plenty in the world. That is, by that I mean regimes that cannot really be contested. Sometimes you have these semi-contested elections, but then there's violations, violence, and so forth. The possibility basically to have a system in place where the government is accountable to the population at some fundamental level, at least in elections, or even better in day-to-day experience. So that means the government shouldn't act with impunity, and the police shouldn't act with impunity, and the courts should not be controlled. So a lot of that has been developing in Ukraine the wrong way, particularly in the last 3 years. And I see the rebellion basically as like a rather remarkable in its length and its intensity, civic rebellion saying, we can't take this anymore. Something kind of psychologically like switched. Now, what it will mean in the short, middle, long term, who knows, but it will mean something. Definitely, because we're seeing it, in a sense, it's like a nation, but in a civic sense, not in an ethnic sense, has been reborn in terms of how it sees itself and what it can do. But here at the chair, we have about, maybe up to a dozen young people, many from Ukraine. So they have personal links. They're very emotional about what's happening right now. But they're teaching us a lot also about how they see Ukraine. And that is probably at the personal level the most endearing experience, meaningful to me. that the Chair of Ukrainian Studies is actually a community.